He was entangled with Annie for 10 years, and everyone in their circle laughed at him, calling him the eternal backup guy. She even said, "The nanny's son? Fun to play with, but marriage? Not a chance." At that moment, no one noticed him standing outside the door. He clenched his fists, eyes red, and turned away. That same day, he found someone else and got married. The next day, he knocked on Annie's office door. "Annie, I want to resign." Shawn's deep voice broke the quiet atmosphere of the office. Hearing this, Annie paused with the files, lifted her eyes slightly, her tone indifferent. "Resign? Why? I got married, and I have new plans for the future. It doesn't fit to stay by your side anymore." Shawn's voice was sincere, but Annie seemed to hear a joke. "Married? When did that happen? What about the wedding?" The three questions made the office fall silent for a long moment. Shawn looked down for a while before meeting her gaze. "My wife had to leave the country for something urgent. We'll have the wedding when she gets back." Hearing the word wife, Annie's lips curled into an intriguing smile. "Wife? Who did you marry?" Hearing the suppressed mockery in her voice, Shawn stopped himself from blurting out a name. Even though Gina seemed warm and kind when they got the marriage license yesterday, this marriage happened so fast. Shawn wasn't sure if she wanted it public, so he chose to stay silent. The long silence convinced Annie that Shawn's talk of resignation and marriage was nothing but a show to grab her attention after hearing Billy was back. Normally, she might play along, but now she wasn't in the mood or time to act in this drama. The phone rang. She picked it up, and her cold expression softened instantly. "Billy, I'll be right there." The next second, she grabbed her coat, and as she walked past Shawn, she threw out a casual remark, "If you want to resign, go through the process." Before she finished her sentence, she was already out of sight. Does that mean it's approved? With the process, all he needed was a month for a handover, and he could leave for good. Shawn's tense body relaxed. He could hardly believe how smooth it went. With his head down, he returned to the assistant's office, his mind a mess, filled with many memories. At 16, he'd moved from the countryside to J-City, living with his mom who'd been a nanny for the Whites for decades. The Whites were kind and arranged a school for him, letting him go with Annie. At that age, with his heart just starting to stir, Annie was slender, with a good face, and Shawn fell for her, unable to resist. But knowing their vast differences, he never dared to approach her. Until one night, Annie drunkenly stumbled into his room, and they spent the night together. The next morning, as she zipped up her dress, her back to him, she asked nonchalantly, "You blush every time you see me. Do you like me?" His secret crush was exposed, making him anxious. Yet she turned with a slight smile. "Last night I went to the wrong room. Tonight, do you want to go to the wrong room?" He mistakenly took it as her accepting him, eyes widening, a joy spreading in his chest like flowers blooming. Their relationship held on like that, night after night, all over the house. This ridiculousness lasted 10 years. But she never gave him an official status. Shawn hoped, dreaming that one day, she would express it and give him a name. Until yesterday, Annie suddenly texted him about attending a welcome home party and told him to dress up nicely. They had been together for so long. While she couldn't go a night without him, she almost never brought him to such events. So hearing this, he subconsciously thought she was ready to make their relationship public. His heart was full of excitement, and he went happily. The taxi stopped in the garage. Just as he was about to unbuckle, a familiar voice came from the sports car next to them. It was Annie's close friends, sounding very dismissive. "Annie, bringing Shawn to this kind of event, is that appropriate? If people find out about his background, who knows how they'll laugh." "Yeah, the nanny's son really devalues the event." Annie's voice was mild, but Shawn knew her too well. He could hear the mockery. "If Billy can date such a cheap girl, why can't I bring such a devalued guy to a party?" Each word was like a dagger to Shawn's heart. He froze, his lips trembling. The folks nearby, oblivious, kept chatting. "Ha ha ha. Annie, if Shawn hears you, wouldn't he be heartbroken? Aren't you afraid he'll leave you? With his kind of background, where can he find anything better? Without me, he'd probably not survive." These light words brought laughter, which was so hurtful it crushed Shawn's fragile pride. He had no more interest in this so-called party, and after texting Annie that he didn't feel well and couldn't make it, he hurriedly left the garage. By the time he came to his senses, he realized he was back at the Whites. He asked a long-time staff member there and quickly learned about Annie and the boy named Billy's history. Turns out they were childhood sweethearts, having grown up together closely. When in school, Annie never accepted any love letters because she already had someone she liked. But before she could express it, Billy started dating someone unsuitable. The Booths disapproved, but he resisted the family and left the country with his girlfriend. Annie never forgot him, longing for Billy for years, staying single, waiting for his return. Hearing all this, Shawn felt numb. Those feelings that had haunted him for so long about Annie, who was like a shining star in the sky, finally made sense with the name Billy. He figured out why Annie had kept him in a confusing relationship for 10 years. It was because Billy had chosen a poor woman, so out of spite, she settled for someone as cheap as him. When daylight came, his tears had dried up, and the last flicker of hope in his heart was gone too. Completely over it, he pulled out a business card. The card belonged to Gina. Years ago, Shawn's mom saved Gina's life by pushing her out of the way of an out-of-control car. Out of gratitude, Gina gave her this card, promising help if she ever needed it. Not long after, Shawn's mom passed away, giving the card to him on her deathbed. Now, Shawn faced an unsolvable problem and decided to call the number and make an unusual request. He asked Gina to marry him. She didn't hesitate and agreed. That afternoon, they headed to City Hall and got their marriage certificate. Afterward, Gina mentioned she needed to go abroad and that they'd have to wait a month to hold the wedding. Shawn only wanted to use the marriage to finally get rid of Annie and didn't care about having a wedding, so he agreed. Holding the marriage certificate in his hands, it felt surreal to Shawn. He was married now, but mostly he felt relief. He could finally let go of Annie for good. Billy, who had been abroad for years, suddenly returned, apparently because he broke up with his longtime girlfriend. Back then, he rebelled against his family for her, but their different backgrounds proved too much in the end. His return caught many off guard, leaving him unprepared for a lot of things. Annie heard and immediately dragged Shawn along to help out. Although Shawn wasn't keen to go, he was technically still under Annie's employment as he was transitioning jobs, and thus had no excuse to refuse. On the way there, Annie kept giving him advice, telling him to be sharp and notice what was missing. Shawn nodded along, running around to get things done. After buying everything, a tired Shawn followed them, listening to them reminisce. Annie, remember how for every birthday you'd have my favorite cake flown in from Europe? I haven't had anyone do that for me these years abroad. The flown-in cake? Shawn had received one too, which made him happy for a while, but he never understood why. Now he knew those cakes were for Billy's birthday, and every time we went out, you'd take me to that little eatery. Wonder if it's still open after all these years? It hadn't closed. Shawn quietly answered in his heart. He'd been there 2 months ago with Annie. She always ordered 2 servings of their Black Forest cake. That must have been because Billy liked it. As the three of them walked, Annie and Billy dug up old memories, and Shawn could find a parallel in each one in his own memory. Only today did he realize that all of Annie's care and concern for him were just her way of reminiscing about Billy. He watched the two, their backs in sync, keeping his composure while keeping busy. The once empty room was now packed with essentials for living, eating, and entertainment thanks to half a day's work. Billy was pleased with his efficiency, looking at him with praise. Talking with Annie for so long, I almost forgot to ask, "Who's this?" Before Shawn could reply, Annie cut in. He's the son of a long-time housekeeper for the Whites. She'd brought him along all these years, and when she passed a few years back, he stayed on. He was part of the family, now working as my assistant. A hint of surprise flashed in Billy's eyes, but was quickly replaced by normality. Annie really has a kind heart, keeping old ties. Annie looked at him, her tone charged with meaning. Yes, I hold on to old ties, and I remember old flames too, Billy. Billy paused at that, not continuing the conversation. Nearby, Shawn caught the exchange, lowering his gaze. Loved ones can be overseas for years, yet you'll still hold on to fond memories when reunited. Annie, for sure, remembers the old flame. Passing a flower garden, he casually fixed a leaning branch. Just then, Billy turned his head and noticed his ring. "Hey Shawn, I've seen that ring before. It's pricey. Guess the assistant gig pays well," Billy remarked. Shawn's eyes followed Billy's to the glowing ring on his hand, momentarily lost in thought. Gina had given it to him before she left, saying the wedding might be postponed, but the gesture couldn't be missed. Shawn never knew much about the jewelry's worth, assuming it was something picked up last minute. "It's really valuable?" he wondered. Even Annie glanced at it and frowned a bit. "Nice ring," Billy noted, "just on the wrong finger." "That's the wedding band spot." Shawn shook his head, smiling. "No mistake. It's a wedding band." "A wedding band? You're married?" Billy's face showed genuine surprise. Shawn nodded softly. "Yeah, just a few days ago." Annie's expression darkened right away. She stared at Shawn for a while, wanting to say something, but couldn't bring herself to. As they finished up and night fell, Billy walked them to the garage. During their goodbyes, he threw in a few more compliments about Shawn. "Annie, you're on top of things like nobody's business. I'm still trying to get my bearings back. And if it's cool with you, could you give me his contact info? I might need to reach out for some help." He asked her for a favor, so Annie didn't say no. "Of course, what's mine is yours. I'll text you his contact after a while. Just direct him if you need anything." Driving home, Shawn kept quiet. Annie instinctively thought he was mad about what happened earlier. She was about to ask when her gaze shifted and caught sight of that ring, which brought back her suppressed frustration. "Marriage, wedding rings, if you're gonna half-ass it with me, fine. But no need to put on a show for Billy." Shawn's grip on the wheel tightened slightly, but he decided to clarify. "No, it really is a wedding ring." His eyes avoided hers as he said it, making Annie think he was feeling guilty. She didn't bother wasting breath, just laid it all out there. "Billy's different from everyone else to me, so you'd better keep your little tricks to yourself and stick to your duties. Don't try anything with him." Her tone was laced with a clear warning. Shawn's eyes narrowed and his lips pressed tight, but he said nothing. In the past, him seeing her care so much about Billy might have stirred up some jealousy. But Shawn's not the type to stir things up and certainly wouldn't mess with someone she loves. Now that he's married, he couldn't care less who she likes or dislikes. After 10 years of knowing each other, it surprised him that she'd think of him this way. A hint of helplessness crossed Shawn's mind as he let out a barely audible sigh. After they added each other, Billy frequently pinged him for favors. "Lost passport? Get Shawn to handle it. Missing something at home? Call the cops, Shawn. Want to see a play? Shawn, snag those tickets." He juggled these odds and ends with his company work, running himself ragged. A few times, he tactfully suggested to Annie that she hire a professional assistant for Alex, but she didn't seem interested. Shawn knew it wasn't about the money. She just wanted to hammer home how much Billy meant to her, rubbing it in for Shawn. But that really wasn't necessary. He saw the truth clearly, so much so that he left it alone and had already moved on from her. Running around for over a week left Shawn so hectic he practically forgot about Gina. So when she called, it caught him off guard. Her voice was as gentle as ever. "Are you busy? Sorry to bother you today. I just wanted to see how you feel about having the wedding over at Bay." "A wedding at Bay?" Shawn repeated without realizing, just as the assistant's office door swung open. Annie walked in, eyes locked on him with a cold glare. "Wedding? What wedding?" Shawn was so startled he hung up abruptly and stood. "My wedding." Before walking in, Annie had started to grow suspicious. But when she saw him hang up in a fluster, her skepticism rose even more, making her scoff. "So, you're sticking to this marriage story? Given we've known each other 10 years, why haven't I gotten an invite? Seems kinda off, doesn't it?" Invitation. First-time groom, Shawn hadn't even thought about that. After a pause, he met her gaze and spoke coolly. "Invitations aren't ready yet. But once they are, I'll make sure you get one. With the wedding clothes and no invites ready yet?" Hearing that, Annie couldn't help but find it amusing. She didn't call him out, just nodded non-committally. All right then, I'll wait. On a rare weekend off, Shawn wasn't idle, prepping stuff to toss out. Box in hand, he ran into Annie on her way home. Catching her cryptic look, he put the box down and explained. Annie, I'm planning to move out after getting married. Thanks for looking out for me all these years. A flicker of annoyance crossed Annie's face, her tone snappier than usual. Bringing up marriage all the time, what? Scared I'll forget? Anyway, it's my place here, so your call if you want to move. From her voice, Shawn sensed a rough mood, so he held back any more words and lent an ear to her orders. I'm off next week, taking Billy to Y City for vacation. Could you prep a travel plan, see everything through? Billy has OCD, so swap the hotel stuff out for new, and make sure it's sanitized. Start the day after 3 p.m. since he's jet-lagged. You gotta vet the people joining too, he's not into chatterboxes. From hotels to personnel, from weather to preferences. Annie rambled on for over half an hour, meticulous in every detail. In the decade he knew her, Shawn had never seen her put so much effort into someone. Looking at the 40-minute recording, he sighed deeply, memories of the past bubbling up. Y City, famous for its beauty, was a destination Shawn had longed to visit. Before Billy returned, he brought it up to Annie, even made it his birthday wish. But no matter how he pleaded, she never agreed. Always insisting work was too busy, no time for fun, leaving him crestfallen for quite a while. Who would have thought that work-driven Annie would go to such extremes ensuring Billy's joy? Truly, old friends and new clothes aren't the same. Shawn didn't feel hurt, just thoughtful and a bit resigned. He agreed to the request, tossed the trash, and got right on planning. For the following week, free of constant calls, he finally enjoyed some downtime. Billy sent tons of vacation pics, scenery, food, selfies, group photos, capturing everything. Whenever they popped up, Shawn would check them out, not snooping, just indulging his wanderlust. One day, Gina's secretary unexpectedly texted about checking out the wedding house. With nothing pressing, he agreed and tagged along to the villa area over at Mountain. After seeing 2 villas, some work emergency popped up, sending the secretary away. Shawn wandered around by himself but found it pretty dull, so he decided to head back. Just as he reached the entrance, he heard 2 familiar voices outside the villa. Annie, why'd you suddenly decide to give me a house? You love painting, right? It's near the mountains here. When you feel like going out to get some inspiration, it's nice to have a place to rest. Billy couldn't refuse after hearing how thoughtful she was being. Annie, you're always so considerate. You're really good to me. When Annie heard the word sister, a flicker of sadness flashed in her eyes. She turned her head to hide those feelings and forced a smile. If you recognize how good your sister is, then let's not be upset over those women who aren't worth it. Okay? Halfway through her sentence, Annie saw Shawn walking over from next door. Her tone shifted immediately. What are you doing here? Stalking me again? Shawn hadn't expected to run into her here and hurried to explain. No, Annie, I'm just here to check out a house. A house? Here? Shawn, do you even know the prices of the villas in this area? Billy looked baffled, and Annie found it ridiculous, her lips curving upwards slightly. Check out a house? For what? A wedding house? With both pairs of eyes on him, Shawn was at a loss for words. But he really was there to see a house, so after a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Billy glanced at the house nearby, then at the wedding ring on Shawn's hand, looking even more surprised. What's your wife's name? Shawn didn't want to drag Gina into the mess with Annie. After a moment of silence, he didn't say anything. Seeing that he couldn't come up with anything, Annie's frosty demeanor inexplicably softened a bit. Still, she couldn't stand his act of being addicted to pretending to be married. Since Shawn is here to buy a house, you must have already seen enough. So call your wife and close the deal. Otherwise, I will. She looked him straight in the eye, emphasizing the word wife heavily. This villa was indeed nice, and the secretary had said it was the type Gina liked. Shawn was planning to settle on it anyway. Knowing Annie's personality, if she said she'd do something, she definitely would. After a brief hesitation, he took out his phone and dialed the number marked as his wife's. Even after a minute of ringing, No one picked up. As the seconds ticked by, Annie's patience was wearing thin. Seeing Shawn still holding up the phone pretending, a flare of unexplainable anger rose in her chest. Just as she was about to speak, a car suddenly drove straight toward the three of them. "Watch out." Without thinking, she pulled Billy to safety. By the time Shawn realized the danger and tried to dodge, it was too late. He was hit and rolled to the ground. The accident left Billy terrified, his eyes losing focus. Annie was worried about him, so she ignored settling scores with Shawn and drove off with Billy. Shawn rolled about 30 feet. His lower leg was badly scraped, the pink flesh showing. It hurt so much his eyes reddened. When he managed to sit up, Annie's car brushed past him. She was entirely focused on Billy and didn't glance at badly injured Shawn. Dust hit him in the face, making him cough uncontrollably, the redness in his eyes deepening. Once he calmed down a bit, his phone, lying nearby, buzzed with a voice. "Shawn? What's going on?" Hearing Gina's voice, Shawn quickly picked up the phone and lied to keep her from worrying. "Oh, nothing. It's just my throat's a little sore. Don't worry. I wanted to tell you that I found us a wedding house. The price might be a bit high. Want to see some photos?" A gentle voice came through. "No need for photos. If you like it, I like it. Price isn't an issue. I trust you, Shawn, you can make these decisions." Barely escaping with his life and then being left behind, Gina's gentle reassurances felt like a pebble tossed into Shawn's heart, creating ripples. His voice softened as he replied with a smile, despite the pain. "Then let's go with this one." Gina agreed, and not wanting to disturb her work, Shawn didn't press further. Just as he was about to hang up, her voice breezed through like a gentle spring wind. "Shawn, we're a couple now. No matter what happens, you need to tell me, all right?" Moved by her concern, Shawn paused and softly murmured in agreement. Then, he limped to the hospital alone, tears trickling down upon recalling Gina's words. They were tears of pain, but also of warmth. The injury wasn't exactly minor, and it ended with Shawn needing dozens of stitches. After taking several days to recover at the hospital, Shawn returned to work. After wrapping up the meeting plan for 2 days later, his secretary knocked and entered, visibly anxious. "Shawn, do you know where Annie is? We can't reach her, yet X is pressing for the contract. They need it today. What should we do?" Fully aware of how crucial the X project was, he'd been involved throughout. Shawn didn't want his team's efforts to go to waste. He took the file, offered to try, and left. He hailed a cab and checked Billy's social media, giving the driver the address of a hot spring resort Billy had posted about an hour ago. Along the way, Shawn tried calling Annie a few times, but she didn't pick up, making him even more anxious. When he finally arrived, Billy and Annie were having afternoon tea. The moment she spotted him, the smile vanished from her face. "What are you here for?" Shawn knew he was interrupting her good mood, but business was business. He calmly explained the situation. Hearing it was work-related, Billy stood up immediately. "Annie, if you have to attend to work, let's head back." Annie spent forever convincing Billy to go on a date, and now it's all messed up. She's super pissed. "Didn't I tell you? Even if the sky's falling, as long as Billy and I are together, don't bother us," she scolded. Then, she flipped the table, shot him a cold glare, and ran after Billy. Hot coffee spilled on Shawn's wound, making him suck in a sharp breath. He watched Annie leave, a bitter smile playing on his lips. Truth is, he never told her this. If he had known how important Billy was to her, he wouldn't have wasted years on her. He wouldn't have turned down all those offers to stay by her side as an assistant. Lost in thought, he limped to the roadside. The cab that was parked there before had vanished. The resort's shuttle buses had left too. It was obvious. Annie had done this on purpose as payback. Sighing, Shawn accepted his fate and started the long walk down the mountain, dress shoes and all. After 10 kilometers, he got home just as the sun set. His leg injuries hadn't healed. He was in pain, stumbling several times in the dark, caked in mud, his leg blistered and bleeding. It felt like walking on razor blades. He took off his shoes, limping into the living room, planning to clean up. But suddenly, a cold laugh hit him. You found it fun to interrupt me and Billy? Shawn looked up to meet Annie's furious eyes. Straightening up, he lowered his head respectfully. Annie, I really came to deliver documents. I didn't know Alex meant so much to you. Sorry. He handed her the signed document he'd carried around all day. Annie took it with a blank expression, then ripped it to shreds in front of him. She threw the plastic cover at him. There's no room for schemers here. If this happens again, pack your bags and leave. With that, she slammed the door as she left. Staring at the shredded paper on the floor, Shawn leaned against the coffee table and squatted down. Wiping the blood from his leg, he chuckled. Next time, there wouldn't be one. In 10 days, he'll really be packing up and leaving. The next morning, a secretary brought him a document. Shawn flipped through it quickly. It was a notice of discipline, docking his half-year salary and bonus. On top of that, the secretary relayed a new company rule. Whenever Annie and Alex were together, no one was to disturb them, using Shawn as the cautionary tale. Shawn just signed the notice without argument, grabbed his coffee mug, and headed to the break room. The new rule was the hot topic at work, with everyone gossiping about Annie and Billy. Some folks dug up old stories to spread around. Did you hear? The Y project was all for Alex's love of skiing. Annie just bought it up. That antique tea set Annie had me photograph? It's with Alex. I saw it on the news. Shawn quietly listened but didn't join in, focusing on his coffee. A few coworkers, knowing he'd been slighted, offered comfort. Shawn, you were innocent in all this. Everyone thinks you're catching strays. Maybe apologize to Annie. See if things can be salvaged? Shawn shook his head, oddly cheerful. I'm leaving soon anyway. Wasn't gonna get that money either way, so why bother? Hearing this, everyone gathered around, curious. You're really leaving? We thought you were kidding. Will Annie allow it? Yeah, you've been with her for years. She's not gonna try to keep you? Shawn smiled, meeting their eyes with sincerity. For real. 9 days and I'm out. See you around. Word spread, and many colleagues stopped by to say goodbye. Luckily, Annie was busy with Billy, staying out of the office, and hadn't been in touch. Enjoying the calm, Shawn wrapped up projects slowly. 2 days before leaving, he got home to unexpectedly receive a call from Billy. Shawn, you available? Can you bring stomach meds to my place? Annie's got a bad stomachache. Grabbing the meds, Shawn headed to the booths quickly. Billy took the pills, pulled out 2, and, as if to feed them to Annie, lifted the water glass. Annie, unused to this sudden intimacy, glanced instinctively at Shawn. Seeing his impassive face, Annie realized her reaction was odd. She looked away and quickly swallowed the meds. Once she swallowed, Billy put down the glass, patted a pillow behind her neck, then turned to Shawn. I thought Annie was healthy. How'd she get a stomach problem? Shawn glanced at Annie, who was looking down, and finally explained, plain and simple. Since you left the country, Annie's been drinking heavily, getting drunk at least 4 or 5 times a month. Her stomach's gotten bad. She won't see a doctor and it's... Without finishing, Annie looked up suddenly, as if shocked he'd undermine her. Running your mouth, aren't you? You've delivered it. Now leave. Something Shawn said seemed to piss her off again. But he wasn't about to dwell on it now and, with a slight nod, turned to leave the villa. As he stepped out of the elevator, he heard hushed voices in the garage. He tiptoed closer to find the driver chatting. Been spending every day with your young master, Annie has. Sounds like something big's coming up. Huh? No way, Alex's girlfriend just broke up with him not too long ago. I saw him with teary eyes a couple of days ago. Can he really move on this quickly? You don't get it. Heartbreak. You always get over it eventually. With someone as great as our Annie, who's so into him, it's just a matter of time before he falls for her. Listening to their chat, for some reason, Shawn felt a sense of relief and smiled. Yeah, Annie waited for Billy for 12 years. Someone as devoted as her will eventually get what she wants, right? But it's got nothing to do with him anymore. He was about to start a new chapter in his life. The day before leaving, Annie still hadn't come back. Shawn followed Gina's assistant to the bridal shop and picked out a wedding dress he really liked. It suited Gina perfectly. Back home, he went through everything related to Annie and either burned or tossed it all away. Looking at the now empty room he'd lived in for 10 years, he turned off the lights and peacefully drifted to sleep. The day of departure, his alarm went off at 8. He rubbed his eyes, got up, freshened up, and went to the office to finish his resignation process. After getting home, he packed the last of his things into boxes and closed the door. The housekeeper mentioned that Annie had returned. Shawn figured he should say goodbye, so he dragged his suitcase to her bedroom and knocked gently. A minute later, the door opened. Annie peeked out, asking coldly what he wanted. Before he could say the words he had prepared, she caught a glimpse of his luggage and smirked. "You're not telling me you're moving out to get married and live in a new house, are you?" Shawn could hear the sarcasm in her voice but still answered earnestly. "Yes, I'm getting married tomorrow and moving out. Just wanted to let you know. If you're free, you and Alex are invited to the wedding. I'll even save a bouquet for Alex." Watching him act so convincingly, Annie almost wanted to commend his performance. Just as she was about to speak, her phone chimed with messages from Billy. She read them while grabbing a coat and heading out. Just before leaving, she turned back to face Shawn with her usual haughty tone. "Shawn, my patience is running thin. This is the last time, stop acting." Seeing her walk away without looking back, Shawn smiled calmly. "Annie, I'm not acting. I really am getting married tomorrow. And for real, I'm leaving." After saying this, he gave one last look around the house filled with memories. 10 years, he and Annie had been entangled for 10 whole years. "Annie, one day you'll realize that the man you think is worthless might just be someone else's treasure." After that thought, he took out his phone and sent Gina a text. "Gina, tomorrow's the wedding. Have you made it back to the country?" A reply came almost immediately with a ding. "Landed at the airport, will make it to the wedding on time. Shawn, let's look after each other for the rest of our lives." Feeling a sense of home after reading the reply, he smiled gently, picked up his suitcase, and turned around. Step by step, he walked away from Annie and the Whites. He left decisively, not looking back. The next day, Annie went to work as usual, expecting Shawn to make her coffee, only to be told he had completed his resignation. In a fit of rage, she nearly destroyed the entire floor. She couldn't believe that while she had been with Billy for the past month, Shawn had really resigned. After tearing up the resignation letter into pieces out of frustration, she headed back to the old house, determined to confront him. As soon as she reached the door, the housekeeper approached and informed her Shawn had moved out the day before. Hearing this, Annie, enraged, dialed his number with a cold expression. Once connected, she didn't give him the chance to speak, immediately reprimanding him. "Shawn, you're taking this fake marriage act way too far. If you really want to leave, then don't ever come back." Facing her wrath, Shawn remained unusually calm, as if giving a report. "Annie, I'm not coming back. Don't worry. I didn't lie to you. I'm actually getting married today." Just then, the housekeeper remembered and handed her an invitation Shawn left yesterday. "Annie, Shawn wanted me to give this to you today." Seeing the gold-embossed words "We're getting married" on the front, Annie's face flushed with anger. She snatched the invitation and tossed it to the driver, instructing him to take her to the wedding venue immediately. On the drive over, her mind was a chaotic mess replaying the scene of Shawn with his suitcase, her expression dark enough to drip water. Once parked, she hurriedly climbed out and headed for the elevators. Stepping out, she saw the grand hall filled with tables set for a feast and flowers everywhere. Her heart sank. Several receptionists approached to greet her, and she demanded to be taken backstage. Seeing Shawn in a white tux before her only made her angrier. She glanced around, not spotting the bride, while the clock showed it was only 10 minutes until the ceremony. Realizing something was amiss, she took the invitation from the driver and, upon reading Gina's name as the bride, sanity returned. "Gina? Your bride is Gina?" Annie eyed Shawn with mocking laughter in her tone. Hearing the name, a few people accompanying her chuckled. "The miller's heiress? No way she'd marry a housekeeper's son like you." Ridiculous, with the Miller's stature, Shawn wouldn't even qualify as a fling. Hearing their laughter, Annie was further convinced it was all an elaborate act. At this point, she didn't bother arguing and, in a rare moment of patience, spoke to him. "I won't hold you accountable for any past issues. Just come back with me willingly." Shawn calmly adjusted his cufflinks. "Thank you for being so generous, but sorry, today is my wedding, and I don't plan on going back." Annie had never been turned down like this before. Seeing his firm expression, her anger flared up, and she knocked over the champagne tower nearby. Just as she was about to unleash her long-held reprimands, her phone rang unexpectedly. She hesitated, debating whether to answer or to finish her tirade, when Shawn spoke up beside her. "Alex is calling. Are you sure you still want to stay here?" Annie was convinced this was all a farce, sure that there was no bride today. She lifted her chin, giving him a sideways glance with an icy tone. "Of course, I'm not staying. Billy is way more important than you. Go ahead with your wedding. I want to see who'll marry you." With that, she turned on her heel and strode out of the wedding venue. Shawn didn't say another word, watching her leave, then headed to the front room. A server quietly approached him. "Mr. Shawn, the lady has left with a few friends. Is it time to start the wedding now?" Just as he finished speaking, the clock struck 12, and the wedding march began to play right on time. Outside, there was the sound of cars starting up. In the next moment, the tightly closed door opened. Wearing a white wedding dress, Gina pushed open the door amid the eager gazes in the hall. Arranging her bouquet, she walked directly to Shawn, smiling up at him. "Sorry, I'm late." Perfect timing, not late at all. Listening to his gentle reassurance, Gina's smile deepened. She extended a hand, her eyes full of warmth and determination. "Shall we?" Shawn nodded, taking her hand in his. Amid cheers and blessings from all around, the couple slowly walked down the aisle. Outside, fireworks boomed, pink and white rose petals gently drifted down, and cameras continually flashed. To Shawn, everything except Gina was unfamiliar. Truthfully, he didn't even know Gina that well. Everything felt like a surreal dream, leaving him feeling a bit dazed. The officiant handled the ceremony seamlessly, quickly reaching the ring exchange part. When Gina lifted his hand and gently placed the ring on his finger, Shawn finally felt that he was the star of this wedding. Ever since his mom passed away 3 years ago, he hadn't had any family left in the world. No family, no home, just living on with the Whites. After today, he wouldn't be alone. Now he had a new family and brand new relatives. As for the future, Shawn wasn't sure. He looked down at the ring on his hand, praying silently in his heart. Let today be the beginning of tomorrow, not the end of yesterday. Seeing him lost in thought, Gina held his hand tightly, the warmth from her palm passing through Shawn's skin. He instinctively lifted his gaze, meeting her eyes which were as soft as spring water. With the ceremony concluded, the crowd urged for a kiss. Though they'd talked for over a month, they'd only met twice. So, hearing the crowd's goading made Shawn a little nervous, and he blushed. Gina, however, remained composed. She leaned down, softly asking, "Is it okay?" The gesture caught him off guard, and even more so by her polite question. Gina noticed his expression and could sense his feelings. Smiling, she lifted her hand, indicating that a gentle kiss on the back of her hand would suffice. The soft touch, with a hint of fragrance, left Shawn briefly stunned. The noise in the crowd didn't quiet down. Instead, it only grew louder. A touch of helplessness flashed across Gina's face. As she turned to prompt the officiant for the next part, Shawn unexpectedly pulled her into a hug and wrapped his arm around her waist. Their warm breaths mingled closely, blurring the line between them. In her surprised gaze, Shawn decided to go for it and kissed her lips. Thunderous applause erupted below, while reporters who managed to sneak in captured the moment on cameras. 5 minutes later, the headline M Group's CEO gets married. Gina ties the knot accompanied by several fresh photos made the top news. This bombshell revelation instantly sparked widespread discussion. On the way back, Sandy scrolled through her phone out of boredom and unintentionally read the headline aloud. M Group's CEO got married, Gina got married? Initially, no one in the car paid much attention to the casual remark until the driver murmured, "What a coincidence. Shawn's bride is also named Gina." That's when everyone realized. Sandy zoomed in on the picture, and upon seeing the bride's face clearly, her eyes widened. She hopped over from the back row to the middle, shoving the phone in Annie's face, speaking rapidly. "Annie, look, the guy Gina married. Doesn't he look like Shawn?" The guy in the photo, from his suit to hairstyle, was identical to the Shawn they'd seen just half an hour ago. Annie's previous disbelief was gone upon seeing the photo, replaced by utter shock. She snatched the phone, swiping through the pictures. When she got to the kissing photo, her mind felt like it was about to explode, overwhelmed by an unprecedented panic. Trembling, she pulled out her phone, trying to call Shawn, over and over, but no one answered. Nameless fury spread wildly in her mind, quickly eroding her rationality. The endless ringing made her lose control, and she smashed her phone against the seat, gritting her teeth, demanding the driver to turn back. Her friends sitting nearby were too scared to speak. Finally, Sandy mustered her courage to remind her softly, "Annie, Billy is still waiting for you. Turn back." A loud yell startled the driver, making him shiver. Forgetting about traffic rules, he made a 180-degree turn, right there on the road, and headed straight for Bay. The sports car pulled up at the hotel once more. Annie slammed the door open and didn't have the patience to wait for the elevator, so she ran up the stairs. Inside the hall, the wedding ceremony had just ended, and they were now in the middle of the toasting segment. Shawn had changed into traditional Chinese attire, following Gina around and meeting her friends and family. In the midst of toasting, hotel security chased someone into the hall, drawing everyone's attention. With all eyes on her, Annie barged in without hesitation and grabbed Shawn's hand, attempting to pull him away. Seeing her return, Shawn was shocked. He instinctively steadied himself, trying to shake free from her grip. But her grip was too strong. As they struggled, he lost his balance and fell to the ground. Gina quickly knelt down to help him up and frowned deeply when she saw the red marks on his calf. Once Shawn was back on his feet, Annie tried to drag him away again. Gina stepped forward and shielded him. Her usually warm and gentle face was now cold as ice, her eyes freezing as she looked at the unwelcome guest. "Annie, I'd appreciate it if you could show some respect to my husband." Hearing that, a glint of malice flickered in Annie's eyes. "Your husband? Gina, you must be mistaken. Shawn is my assistant at W Group." Those words shocked everyone around them. Gina's long-hidden, unseen husband was Annie's assistant? Feeling the judgmental stares from the crowd, Shawn took a deep breath. He looked at Annie with eyes as calm as a lake. "Annie, I've already quit. You can see my resignation letter at the office." Of course, Annie knew he had quit. She had said that to assert her dominance, but she didn't expect him to defy her in public, which made her angrily furrow her brows. "It's true you've quit, but don't forget your mother worked for the Whites for 30 years, and you've lived at the Whites for 10. Are you going to be so ungrateful?" Hearing her accusation, a different emotion appeared on Shawn's face, an ironic smile. "Annie, you're being too dramatic. It was just a transaction, services rendered for payment. Why talk about gratitude? Someone like you wouldn't be concerned with someone as insignificant as me." Everyone nodded in agreement with his words. In J-City, everyone knew about Annie and Billy's relationship. The idea that she'd be interested in a lowly assistant was ridiculous. Seeing how easily he severed ties with her, Annie's expression turned even colder as she eyed Gina. "Sure, you're just a housekeeper's son, too low for the Whites. Do you think you can climb up with the Millers? You better recognize your place." After years by Annie's side, Shawn had heard plenty of such sneers and was no longer reactive. He was about to respond when Gina met his gaze confidently, refusing to back down. "Climb up should be a phrase you use for yourself, Annie. In the Millers' eyes, everyone is born equal. There's no such thing as high or low. Shawn and I married because we love each other. He has no ties to the Whites anymore. Who's the guest trying to outshine the host here? Is this the Whites' etiquette?" Annie's face flushed with anger, but she was speechless. She clenched her fists so tightly that her features twisted with rage. Sensing things were off, her friends quickly tried to pull her away. Burning with unreleased anger, she could only leave Shawn with harsh words. If you marry her today, don't ever step back into the whites again. Under her furious gaze, Shawn nodded gently, his expression faintly amused. Don't worry, Annie. I have no intention to. Hearing his calm response, Annie felt a sense of futile frustration. She gave him a long, hard look, then shoved past people and briskly left. Staff hurried in to clean the overturned tables and glasses, while Gina sighed in relief. After explaining to the guests and signaling for the festivities to continue, she led Shawn backstage. With only the two of them left in the room, Shawn looked at Gina apologetically. I'm sorry. I didn't know she'd cause such a scene at the wedding. It's all because of me. Gina shook her head gently, her expression returning to its usual warmth. She's from the whites. If she's here to stir trouble, there's little I could do. We're married and we face these things together. It's over now. No need for guilt or blame. Though her words were comforting, Shawn still felt responsible for the chaos. If it weren't for me, it wouldn't have come to this. So many people saw the whole mess. Your parents must be furious. Gina handed him a cup of water, patting his shoulder as she softly reassured him. You're still calling them uncle and aunt? My parents are reasonable and protective. They'll only be mad at the whites, and they'll probably worry more about you. Don't overthink it. I've got this. Sipping the water, Shawn slowly calmed down. He didn't want to trouble her with his worries, so he dropped the subject. Gina took the cup and placed it on the table, then crouched down to examine his ankle. Did you hurt yourself when you fell? Are you sprained? Shawn was surprised that she'd care about such a small thing and was momentarily stunned. Gina grabbed some tissues and gently wiped the dirt from his leg. Then he rolled up his pant leg and looked at the scars. His voice was full of concern. When did you get hurt? Was it the day we went to see that house? I heard cars over the phone. Was it a car accident? Shawn really wanted to deny it, but looking at her face, he didn't want to lie to her. Yes, but it's almost healed. It doesn't hurt at all. Seeing the forced smile on his face only made Gina feel worse. He let down his pant leg, then helped him to the sofa. After sending a few messages to her assistant, she knelt down, took off his shoes, and placed them aside. I'll have my assistant bring over some new shoes. You just rest for now. The wedding banquet. Gina gently pressed his hand with a soft but firm tone. The wedding is just a formality. Since it's about us getting married, I just want you to be all right. Shawn couldn't remember the last time someone cared so much about him. His nose felt tingly, and he quickly looked down. But there was just no stopping the swell of tears. After dropping Annie off at home, her girlfriends didn't dare to linger and hurriedly made excuses to leave. With a sullen face, she went straight upstairs to Shawn's former room and coldly instructed the butler. Clear out everything in the room and burn it. Don't leave a single thing. And if you see Shawn, don't let him inside again. The butler knew she was in a bad mood, speaking timidly as he replied, Ma'am. Shawn cleared out his things before moving, and there's nothing left in the room now. He gave me the keys and deleted his fingerprints. He shouldn't be able to get in. With every word he spoke, her face darkened, making the butler's voice grow softer. Before he could finish, Annie kicked the door open. The room was empty. Not even a stray hair was left, looking as new as can be. Seeing the room like this only made Annie's anger burn hotter. What about his things? Did he take everything? Some were burned, some thrown away. He dealt with all his personal items. The things from the old house are stored in the utility room. A few sentences and Annie was fuming. Just as she was about to explode, her phone rang. Seeing the number, she remembered standing up Billy and felt even more frustrated. But she never showed extra emotions in front of him, so after calming her breath and mood, she answered the call. Billy, I'm sorry. Something came up, and I can't make it today. Before she could finish apologizing, Billy interrupted. It's all right, Annie. I'm calling to tell you you don't need to come. I'm about to catch a flight. Hearing this, Annie felt a tightness in her chest. A flight? Where are you going? What for? Billy's voice carried a hint of nervousness. Back to the States. Alan and I are back together. I'm planning to go find her. Thanks for everything recently. Let's catch up another time. His words plunged what little hope Annie had into darkness. She couldn't control her voice or volume anymore and yelled, "Back together? What do you even see in her? I practically gave you my heart, and you'd still rather choose her over giving me a chance?" There was silence on the line for a moment before Billy's apologetic voice came through. "I'm sorry, Annie. I can't forget her. I know you like me, but I've always seen you as a sister over the years. Liking someone can't be forced. Please, forget about me." After facing rejection once more, Annie felt heavily blocked inside, unable to utter another word. Over some static, amidst the noisy sounds, Billy informed her he was going to board, and then the line went dead. Staring at the screen slowly fading to black, a wave of unprecedented defeat washed over Annie. She raised her hand and hurled the phone down from the second floor, slamming the room's door shut, locking herself inside the empty room. After some scurrying footsteps, the world around her fell silent. She felt completely drained of energy and managed to stagger to a chair before collapsing into it. Even though everyone was gone, the room was still faintly filled with a grass-like scent. It was Shawn's usual choice of aromatherapy. The calming scent slowed her racing mind down, making her eyelids heavy. Resting against the back of the chair, Annie drifted off to sleep. When she woke up again, it was already dark, and the room was pitch black, devoid of light. Having emerged from her dreaming, all those tangled past memories came rushing back, leaving Annie both exhausted and unable to escape the spirals they formed. She covered her face and instinctively called out, "Shawn, turn on the lights, make some tea." But it was deathly silent around her. No one responded. Only then did she remember that Shawn had left too. Everyone left, leaving her alone here. An overwhelming sense of loneliness spread inside her. She stood up, feeling her way out of the room, down to the wine cellar, and asked someone to fetch several boxes of wine. Through years of drinking, her tolerance had increased, but so had the toll on her stomach. After 3 or 4 bottles, a burning pain erupted in her gut. Curled up on the floor, cold sweat beaded her brow as she let out pained groans. The maid, knowing she was ill, quickly helped her onto the sofa and rummaged frantically for medicine. But Shawn was always the one keeping track of such things, and unable to find anything, the maid picked up the phone to call 911. "Hello, New Asia Hospital? This is..." Halfway through her plea, Annie pushed herself up and snatched the phone, ending the call. "You're calling an ambulance for something this small? Are you trying to alert the old man?" Confronted with Annie's intense gaze, the maid paled, shaking her head in desperation. "No, it's just Shawn who organized the medicine. I can't find it, and I was worried something might happen, so I thought to call 911. Hearing Shawn's name in this painful moment only intensified Annie's sufferings. Large beads of sweat rolled off her face even paler than a sheet of paper. Seeing her in such condition, the maid was at a loss, only to pick up the phone again to call Shawn. This time, Annie remained still. After 10 seconds of ringing, Shawn's calm voice came through the phone. "Coco, it's late, what's up?" "Shawn, Annie's having an attack. Do you know where the medicine is? Stomach medicine? I sent all of it to Alex last time. There's none left at the house. You should take her to the hospital." Hearing that, Coco got so anxious that tears almost came out. Annie, she wouldn't go to the hospital. Even though Annie was in excruciating pain, she kept her eye on his reaction. Hearing those words, she shakily reached out her hand, signaling her to pass the phone over. Coco hesitated for a few seconds but did as she was told. As soon as Annie got the phone to her ear, she heard Shawn's flat tone. "Let her be in pain, then. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up." His words stabbed Annie in the heart like a needle. Her hand shook, and the phone fell to the floor, the screen shattering to pieces. Coco bent down to pick it up, looking at Annie's pale face, and quietly asked, "Annie, what did Shawn say?" Get out of here." Hearing her angry, suppressed shout, Coco didn't dare to say another word and left quickly with her head lowered. As the door closed, Annie grabbed the bottle of liquor on the table and started chugging it recklessly. One bottle after another, one case after another. She drank until she was hugging the table, throwing up uncontrollably. The nausea and the feeling of revulsion made her cry uncontrollably. By the end, she felt like she was going to throw up her whole stomach, feeling lightheaded, about to lose consciousness. Before passing out, she looked at the glaring fluorescent light above, mumbling something. How can you bear to let me hurt like this? You never used to ignore me." After hanging up Coco's call, Shawn picked up a hairdryer, humming as he dried his wet hair. When Gina saw him smiling, she couldn't help but smile too, waddling over to hand him some ointment. He took it, glancing at the ingredients, and she fetched some cotton swabs from the cabinet before sitting beside him. "What's this for?" Shawn asked. "Scar cream, it's quite effective." Shawn didn't expect her to remember the scars on his legs, and it warmed his heart a bit. Gina had him roll up his pant leg, and she squeezed some ointment onto a cotton swab, gently applying it to the scars. Watching her patient, thorough movements made a flicker of emotion cross Shawn's eyes. Hesitating for a moment, he plucked up the courage to ask a question he had kept buried deep in his heart. "When I told you I wanted to marry you just to get away from the whites, you agreed quickly. Was it really only to repay my mother's kindness?" Gina took a brief pause, glanced up at him, and spoke softly. "A big part of it was to repay the favor, but the other part, my family was also pressuring me to get married. I thought since we're about the same age and you don't have other family, I might as well take care of you as a way of appreciating Shawn's mom." Hearing her explanation, Shawn showed a hint of surprise. "How did you know about my family situation?" After she finished applying the cream, Gina set down the cotton swab and handed him the hot milk she had just brought in. "After Shawn's mom left, she didn't keep in touch, so I had someone check on your family situation. Once I learned she had passed away, I thought about bringing you to the Millers to take care of you, but I secretly asked a few of the Whites' maids. They all said Annie was very good to you. I figured you'd probably rather stay, so I didn't want to disturb you." Looking back at the past, Shawn couldn't help but feel a bit sentimental. 3 years ago, Annie was indeed very kind to him, especially in those months after his mom passed. She sent people to look after him daily, fearing something would happen to him. When they had free time, she would take him out to unwind, trying all sorts of ways to cheer him up, scared he wouldn't be able to cope. Back then, Shawn thought maybe she liked him. Coupled with the loneliness of losing a family member, he let his 7-year guard down and gave his whole heart to her. With more experiences, he matured and only then realized Annie's concern was nothing more than sympathy and pity. Beyond that, her protection in front of others was merely an illusion. When he thought about it, what Annie truly cared about wasn't him at all. She probably just thought that since he grew up in the Whites and had been by her side for so many years, he had become like her accessory in others' eyes. Protecting him was just her way of protecting herself. In reality, the person she cared about and held in her heart had always been Billy. To her, Shawn was just the orphan left behind by a longtime nanny, just a small assistant by her side, just a tool to help her solve various problems. At her beck and call, no different from a secretary or Coco. Thankfully, he's come to terms with it now and doesn't linger on it anymore. A warm, wafting heat snapped Shawn out of his reminiscing. He took a deep breath, looked at Gina with a genuine smile, and spoke with sincere gratitude. "Thank you for this huge help. Now that I'm away from the Whites, Annie shouldn't bother me again. If you ever want a divorce, I'm ready whenever." Hearing this, Gina was startled, looking at him seriously. "Marriage isn't a game. Since I agreed to marry you, I plan to spend the rest of my life with you. If you don't trust me, let's start as a couple, and when you're ready, we can be married for real. Is that okay?" Before proposing marriage, Shawn had heard a lot about Gina. Everyone said she had a gentle disposition, like a breeze in spring. Knowing she had such a kind temperament made him decide to give her a call. Once she agreed to his outrageous request and quickly sealed the deal, Shawn's perception of her changed once again. Especially after what happened today, He felt grateful to know someone like her. Hearing her speak like that now, Shawn felt like he'd hit the jackpot. He stared blankly at her as emotions surged, with a lot to say but not knowing where to start. Seeing his dazed look, Gina found it inexplicably endearing and nudged his shoulder playfully. Don't want to be lovers? How about starting as friends then? Shawn knew she said those words to lighten the mood, to make him smile, but his face flushed red instantly. He didn't dare meet her eyes, just looked down, tapping his fingers on the glass. Seeing his shy demeanor, Gina felt a wave of emotion. We've already got the marriage certificate. Give me a chance. Maybe our marriage isn't a mistake, but fate, she suggested. That one sentence made Shawn's ears turn beet red too. After a long pause, he nodded slightly. His movement was so minor that Gina wasn't sure of his response and asked again. Shawn's heart was pounding, and he whispered like a mosquito, let's give it a try, starting as lovers. The hospital's disinfectant smell filled her nose as Annie opened her eyes to see her stern father. Annie, you got yourself into this mess over a guy? Haven't you learned? His sharp words made Annie close her eyes again. Frowning, her voice raspy. It's not for him. Not for him? Are you kidding me? Billy flew out yesterday afternoon, and you ended up in the hospital by night. If you had any guts, you'd chase him down and drag him back. What are you doing to yourself? Annie got frustrated as he continued bringing up these issues, unable to hold back her temper. He has a girlfriend now. A girlfriend? And you still treat him like a treasure? Their sons are 10 times better. Why hang yourself on this one tree? Annie knew her father was indirectly urging her to date and marry, and was growing more impatient. None of them compare, not even close to Shawn. Both father and daughter were stunned by her outburst. Annie was confused about why she'd compare anyone to Shawn. Her father looked shocked. Shawn? Just a housekeeper's son, not your match. Forget about him. For some reason, Annie felt annoyed hearing that from her father and couldn't help but retort, maybe he's not, but I'd rather see him than those others. Her father, sensing her stubbornness, tested her. Do you really care about him? Possibly like him? Annie's heart skipped a beat, and she froze. She turned her head to hide her expression. How could I? No way. Yet there was hesitance in her voice, and her father picked up on it right away. If you like him, keep him around for fun. His mom's a decent person, your grandma likes them. When you tire of him, don't mistreat him. But seek mom's wisdom in marriage. You're not getting younger. Don't delay. Her father's words lingered in Annie's mind, even after he left. She stared intently at the white wall, clutching her blanket, her mind a jumble. Does she like Shawn? No, she's always liked Billy. But if she doesn't like Shawn, why did she get so mad yesterday hearing about his wedding? Annie couldn't figure it out. Her thoughts raced. One minute she thought about going to America for Billy, then dismissed it. Another about calling Shawn to come back, but couldn't swallow her pride. Next, went with her father's idea about meeting new people, but found them annoying. Her thoughts spiraled, from initially considering Shawn as a lover to chasing away suitors with him. The idea stuck in her mind. Annie squinted, remembering past times. She always knew Shawn liked her but never called it out. She had gotten used to his presence over the years, like having a pet cat to occasionally check on. And she knew he wanted a title, but in her eyes, only Billy deserved to stand beside her. She held that belief for years, but yesterday's news of Billy leaving again started to change it. She had waited for him since their first meeting at the age of 7, all 19 years straight. She thought her persistence would win him over, but ended up just being a sister to him. For some average ex-boyfriend, Billy ditched her yet again. Annie was tired. When she hung up the phone, she was finally done with it, ready to let him and herself go. After making this choice, she was calmer and more decisive than she imagined. The dramatics she'd envisioned never happened, just a sleep and she moved on. Her drinking after, merely to numb the loneliness. Yes, loneliness. The once powerhouse of J-City, she too felt lonely. No one knew better than Annie about ulterior motives. Despite the crowd following her every step, she understood they only came for her power and money. Few she genuinely trusted. Shawn was one. He really liked her. He liked her for who she was, not because she was a CEO. So, she kept him close, just for someone to talk to when alone. But eventually, even that hope faded, leaving only her and alcohol. After her father's talk today, she realized Shawn did hold a place in her heart. She'd rather have Shawn next to her than anyone else. Once she confirmed this idea, she called her assistant, asked them to send a message to arrange a meeting with Shawn. But nothing. A whole day passed with no reply. Growing impatient, she called but got no answer and then was blocked. Annie was fuming yet helpless. As Coco came by with dinner, Annie recalled the call before her hospital visit and waved her over. The day after their wedding, Gina and Shawn visited the old family home. Though they'd briefly met during the wedding, they didn't get to talk much. With the family gathered again, the mood was lively. Gina's parents chatted endlessly, pulling Shawn into the conversation. With Gina by his side, his anxiety eased, and soon he felt at home. Living with the Whites for 10 years, Shawn had seen plenty and was quite the smooth talker. He knew how to charm people, and it kept Gina's parents in stitches. By the time they wrapped up their day together, Gina's mom didn't want Shawn to leave, asking him to visit more often when he had time. He promised he would and told them to take care before getting in the car. On the way back, Gina drove and asked with a smile how he was feeling. Shawn rolled down the window, enjoying the warm evening breeze. He was no longer nervous and was completely relaxed. Great. Had a blast chatting and eating. The only downside was time flew by too fast. I kinda miss your parents already. Parents? Hearing Gina's confused voice, he quickly corrected himself. Mom and Dad. I really like them. You should bring me over more often. Gina laughed and her eyes crinkled up. I'm glad you enjoyed it. They really do like you. See, I wasn't kidding. Shawn chuckled, about to reply when his phone rang. He assumed it was Annie, ready to dismiss the call until he saw Coco's name, so he answered. Shawn, the butler mentioned you moved out to get married? Why didn't you tell me? I got a wedding gift for you. Are you free tomorrow? Can we meet up? At the Whites, Coco was one of Shawn's few friends, and he really liked this young woman just in her 20s. So he didn't think twice about saying yes to lunch with her. After setting a time and place, he turned to Gina to fill her in. She agreed and even offered to drive him there the next day. Shawn felt a bit shy but eventually accepted. With the light turning red, Gina glanced over, a hint of exasperation in her eyes. Don't worry about bothering me. We just got married, and I'm on vacation. What else would I be doing but spending time with you? After lunch, I was hoping to take you on a date, to get to know each other better. Her words put Shawn at ease. They kept talking about their plans for the date until they reached home at 9 p.m. After freshening up, Shawn picked up a book at his bedside and read for half an hour, waiting for Gina to join him. When she did, he put the book away, ready to sleep. The room went dark except for a soft light by the bed. Lying side by side, they started chatting again. Gina shared stories from her childhood, making him laugh uncontrollably. He clutched his stomach, motioning her to stop with one hand. She took his hand, pressed it under the covers, and gently wished him good night. The room gradually fell silent. Listening to the gentle breathing beside him and feeling the warmth of her hand, Shawn felt a deep sense of peace. Remembering the joyful moments from the day and looking at her peaceful face in sleep, he felt a sense of home for the first time in 3 years since his mother passed, in a new place. Shawn found a long-lost sense of security. Arriving at the private room as planned, seeing Annie made Shawn frown. He turned to leave, but she closed the door before he could. Keeping his distance, Shawn stepped to the side, calmly watching her. You had Coco call me. What's this about? Annie seemed uncomfortable with his guarded demeanor. Leaning back in the chair, arms crossed with an air of arrogance, she said, We've known each other for 10 years. Can't we chat? What do you want to talk about? Shawn asked. Annie played with her glass, speaking lazily about how you went behind my back and got involved with Gina. Her tone and attitude gave Shawn the creeps. With determination in his voice, he replied, After leaving my job, Annie, I made it clear we have no ties. I've got nothing to tell you. Oh, what a proper cutoff, she snorted. You think I don't know? Gina's not experienced with guys. You made the move, no wonder she couldn't resist. You've got some tricks, getting her to throw a wedding for you. Think you've had enough fun? Shawn quietly endured her taunts, testing how far she'd go. So what if I have or haven't? Seeing him admit, Annie seemed confident, flashing triumph in her eyes. If you're done, come back to me. This time I'll let it slide. If not, I don't have the patience for these games. State your demands. As long as they're not outrageous, like being my lover, I can accommodate you. Still treating it like charity, Shawn couldn't help but laugh. Thanks for the offer, Annie, but I'm not coming back as your assistant or otherwise. I'm moving on. Farewell. Without pause, Shawn turned for the door. Annie, irritated by his words and actions, shot up and smashed her glass. Shawn, don't be foolish. Gina's just playing. It's only a wedding. Don't think she'll really marry you. When she's bored and kicks you out, don't expect my patience then. Shawn looked back, hesitated briefly, then graciously enlightened her. Annie, Gina and I registered our marriage a month ago. I've said it countless times. Why won't you believe it? Future matters are no concern of my former boss. Hearing the word registered, Annie froze, disbelief washing over her. Why would she marry you? Amid her unraveling voice, Shawn walked away, leaving only a subdued echo in the room. Not everyone is like you, Annie. With a thud, the door closed. Annie stood there, mind blank, dumbfounded. She thought their wedding was a charade, never imagining they'd registered already. Her confidence crumbled, replaced by panic. Questions and confusion spun in her mind. Unwilling to let it end, she chased after him. Outside was completely empty, not a soul in sight. Her heart skipped a beat. She quickly pressed the elevator button and hurried downstairs. After Shawn went upstairs, Gina waited downstairs at the cafe. She was looking at her phone, but her eyes kept watching the corridor. When she saw Annie show up, a bad feeling crossed her mind. Annie was looking around for something, and when she spotted Gina, she walked over in a not-so-friendly manner. Where's Shawn? Hearing this, Gina felt uneasy. She kind of guessed what was going on, and her expression turned cold. What's up? I'm looking for him. It's none of your business. Hearing this impatient tone, Gina dropped her usual gentle demeanor. He's my husband. Those last words deeply hurt Annie. She glared back at Gina, full of resentment. Gina, can't you get any other type of man? Why fight over a mere assistant with me? He can't even handle someone like the Millers, you should just let him go. Gina's eyes turned sharp hearing Annie's dismissive tone about Shawn. Fight? Shawn is his own person. He's not some gift to be given away, nor is he your possession. You've got no right or standing to interfere in his life. Annie, maybe try focusing that arrogance on someone else. You and Shawn are definitely not meant for each other. Annie was fuming, but, in a public place with lots of eyes, she had to hold it in. She clenched her fists, glared at Gina for a good long while, then stormed off. After the sports car sped away, Shawn's voice came from behind. What were you looking at? Hearing his familiar voice made Gina smile gently. She turned and took his briefcase, her voice warm like a spring breeze. Just some cats fighting earlier. I watched for a bit. Shawn didn't think much of it, but looked outside curiously. Cats, huh? I thought it might have been Annie. Did you see her? When he mentioned the name, a barely noticeable chill crossed Gina's eyes. No. Did you run into her? She had Coco call, but after a few words, I left to use the restroom. I thought maybe you two bumped into each other. Seeing his relaxed expression made Gina relax too. She didn't want him worrying over Annie, so she quickly changed the topic, talking about their plans for the afternoon. The couple laughed and chatted as they left. That afternoon, they were like any normal couple. Shopping, watching a movie, taking photos, going on a date. The next few days, they didn't go anywhere, staying home planning the layout of their Crane Hill villa together. Married life was peacefully flowing along. Shawn got used to her around, and they chatted about anything, from the past, dreams, weather, to dinner. Day by day, they knew each other better. Those initial feelings of awkwardness, division, politeness, and worry slowly faded away. May 18th was the anniversary of Shawn's mom's passing. Every year on this day, he'd travel back home to visit where she was buried with his dad. He'd do it alone before, but this year Gina was with him. After landing, the weather was gloomy. They first bought a big bouquet at a flower shop, then headed to the cemetery in the cold wind. It had rained earlier, making the ground slippery. Gina held his cold hand, watching the ground carefully. They walked through the pine forest until reaching Shawn's mom's grave. The closer they got, the heavier Shawn felt. He wanted to look but didn't want to see the tombstone, struggling internally. Looking up, he caught sight of a familiar figure. Annie was standing nearby holding white chrysanthemums, staring intently at him. More accurately, at Gina and his intertwined hands. Since his mom passed, Shawn hadn't heard Annie mention her once. It seemed in her world, Shawn's mom was a passerby, forgotten as soon as she passed, not worth remembering. So seeing her there, a word suddenly flashed in Shawn's mind. Awkward. This remote little town and the surrounding somber atmosphere felt out of place with the extremely self-centered air of W Group. Even the bouquet in her hands seemed mismatched. On regular occasions, Shawn would remain calm bumping into her. But seeing her at his parents' burial ground, he felt she didn't have good intentions and guarded himself more. Gina frowned too, quickening her steps to stand protectively in front of Shawn. The three stood facing each other at the grave, exchanging silent looks, until drizzle began falling again. That is when Annie spoke. You brought her to the grave? Shawn didn't look at her, busy adjusting the flowers in his hand, voice calm. Daughter-in-law visiting her in-law's grave. Something wrong with that? Nothing's wrong. Great even. Annie bit her words, visibly displeased. Shawn didn't care about her mood, addressing her directly. Why are you here, Annie? Annie gave him a look, placed her flowers at the grave, and spoke in a low voice. Auntie worked at my house for over 30 years. Of course, I came to visit an old friend. Thanks. Shawn couldn't believe someone like Annie, who never acted without gain, would come visit simply to reminisce with the deceased after 3 years. He knew she likely had another agenda and didn't want to fall into her trap. After a curt thank you, he ignored her, turning with Gina toward the grave. They focused on their memorial tasks, treating her presence like air. First, Annie managed to hold back. But when realizing they seriously acted as if she didn't exist, annoyance wrapped around her. She broke the sober silence aloud. I still remember Auntie's last wish was for me to look out for you. Yet here we are 3 years later and you've moved on. If Auntie's looking from above, I wonder how she feels about this. After she finished speaking those loaded words, no one replied. Gina and Shawn acted as if they hadn't heard, respectfully bowing toward the grave. Once they cleaned the headstone and arranged the offerings, Gina helped Shawn stand up slowly. The rain was coming down harder, and the two quietly turned to make their way down the hill. Annie was left standing there, staring at their backs, her face twisted with anger. She quickly caught up to them and grabbed Shawn's arm at the cemetery gate, her voice filled with annoyance. You're ignoring me? Shawn paused, looked at her hand out of the corner of his eye, and said coldly, causing a scene on the anniversary of my mom's death. Annie, you think that's fun? Despite knowing him for years, this was the first time Annie heard him use her full name. Back in school, he called her Miss along with the family staff. When he became her assistant, he followed the others and called her Annie. Both titles carried restraint and respect, no matter the situation. This Annie, however, was so icy it pierced her bones, making her shiver involuntarily. Gina stepped forward, brushed off Annie's hand, and pulled Shawn close, quickly leading him to the car. The rain poured down as they drove away toward the city, the sound of a horn echoing through the air. Late autumn rain drenched Annie's face, seeping through her collar and cuffs. She stood frozen, watching the car until it disappeared from her sight. Before long, another car pulled up, and her assistant hurried over with an umbrella to shield her. Annie looked around, pressing her lips tightly together, and walked toward the roadside. The warm air inside the car eased the chill from her body, though the rain-soaked clothes clung uncomfortably to her skin. Her assistant offered dry clothes from the trunk, but Annie didn't even glance at them, instructing the driver with a blank expression to head out. The car was silent, except for the sound of their breaths. As they reached the busier parts of the city, the driver cautiously asked where to next. After a long silence, with the car slowing down, Annie finally said 2 words, hotel. The 2 subordinates breathed a sigh of relief, and after they got her to the hotel room door, they quickly made their exit. Alone in the room, Annie sat in her damp clothes on the sofa, tossing her jacket aside and rubbing her temples, unable to stop the chaos in her mind. Since parting at the restaurant, things hadn't been right. From her morning coffee to meeting notes, and the social engagements for contracts, even arranging family dinners at the White's house. No one could replace Shawn in her life or work, no matter how many people came and went. At night, she found herself dreaming of him frequently. Sometimes it was a replay of old events, other times bizarre adventures. Shawn was always there, silently following her, calling her Annie. Then there were the dreams she couldn't speak of. In those, Shawn didn't call her by her name but with a term of endearment, wife. In these dreams, they were married. He'd warm her milk in the morning, kiss her goodbye, surprise her with gifts when she was down, share the news, and massage her feet after long days in heels. Waking from these dreams, Annie would lie in bed for a long time, replaying every detail. Dreaming of him often, she'd start imagining her future married life. For the critical role of a husband, she envisioned various appearances and personalities, only to find they oddly resembled Shawn. Initially, she thought it was withdrawal from him being gone after spending too much time together. But instead of fading, her feelings intensified. She realized she didn't want to forget Shawn because she couldn't. Her heart longed for him to return and remain by her side, as her husband, not under the title of Gina's husband. Though Annie understood her feelings, she felt helpless. Shawn was truly married to Gina, not her. Many times, she'd impulsively go near the Miller's home, hoping to see him, but he was either busy or with Gina. She never found the chance to meet him alone. It wasn't until she overheard the butler mention Shawn's mom's anniversary that she felt a spark of hope. The day before, Annie was already on a plane, arriving before him. Planning things out, she assumed Gina would be tied up with a project in City C and headed to the cemetery first. But things didn't go as planned, and Gina showed up. In her frustration, Annie angered Shawn again, losing her chance to talk. As these thoughts swirled, Annie unknowingly fell asleep. When she awoke, she felt feverishly hot, her throat dry and scratchy. She was weak, her mind foggy. Dazed, she managed to call her assistant, asking him to come over. Lying back in the heated room, she waited as long as she could, but eventually, her strength gave out and she fainted. The assistant secretary rushed over and found out she had a high fever. It scared the living daylights out of her. She quickly contacted the front desk to get her to the hospital. They spent 6 hours on 4 fluids, and the secretary didn't step away for a second. She watched over her without even blinking. In the middle of the night, Annie woke up, shouting that she needed some water. The assistant secretary hurried to get a drink. While passing through the hallway, she heard a voice that sounded very familiar. She turned her head instinctively and spotted Shawn. He was also waiting by someone's bedside, holding a thermometer, and it was none other than Gina on the bed. Remembering the boss's purpose for coming here, the secretary quickly fetched the water and quietly went back to the room. After Annie drank, the secretary told her what she saw, keeping her voice low. As soon as Annie heard Shawn's name, she perked up and sat upright, ready to pull out her 4. The secretary quickly stopped her and asked a nurse to bring a mobile 4 stand. Although Annie's fever had dropped, she was still weak. Leaning against the wall, she slowly walked out of the room. Through a window, she saw Shawn leaning over Gina, gently giving her medicine, and a wave of jealousy rose in her heart. Noticing that things weren't going well, the quick-witted secretary rushed out, making up an excuse. After some footsteps echoed and faded, the hallway was quiet. You could hear the sounds from the hospital room clearly. Back from the cemetery, the couple initially planned to head straight back to J-City. But once they reached the airport, Gina started coughing. Worried about her health, Shawn brought her to the hospital right away. After some checkups, it turned out she had a cold, but luckily no fever. The doctor prescribed some medicine and handed over a thermometer, instructing Shawn to check her temperature every few hours. Shawn didn't rest, keeping an eye on her and the time. Gina wouldn't rest either, holding his hand, talking non-stop with some coughing in between. Can we go back tomorrow, please? You promised, cough, cough, to take me to see the sunset by the sea. You're sick. How are you going to see the sunset? Let's talk about it when you're better. No way, I already bet with Wendy, cough, cough. If you don't go, he won't help me with the Sea City project, and our honeymoon will have to be postponed. So let's postpone it. I'm not in a rush. But I am. I don't want to work. I just want to enjoy a fun trip with my wife. Cough, cough. Maybe because she was sick, Gina was being as stubborn as a kid. Shawn looked at her helplessly, unable to convince her. He finally gave in. Okay, you rest up and we'll see the sunset, all right? Promise you won't trick me. Shawn tucked her in, voice full of affection. Nonsense, when have I ever tricked you? The last time you promised to kiss, but you ran away in the end. Seeing the couple's playful banter, Annie felt a sting in her heart. She gripped the 4-line tightly, causing the medicine to stop dripping and her blood to start flowing back into the tube. It's like she couldn't feel the pain, her eyes locked on the room. This relaxed and gentle side of Shawn, Annie had only ever seen in her dreams. In reality, when she encountered him, he was like a block of wood. Even when his eyes looked at her with some affection, his words felt as cold and stiff as a robot. While she wallowed in jealousy, the nurse on round duties saw the blood-filled needle, screamed, and rushed over. Hey, let go. Doesn't that hurt? The noise startled Shawn inside the room. He turned his head to see Annie outside with an unhappy face. What's she doing here? Shawn felt a flash of confusion, but he only glanced at her, then turned back to sit down, holding Gina's hand as they napped for a bit. About an hour later, he woke up yawning and found Gina sleeping. He quickly tucked her back under the covers. There was no water in the cup, so he grabbed the kettle to refill it, only to look up and see Annie still by the window, looking worse than before. Shawn wasn't sure what her deal was, and didn't want to bother. He pushed the door open and headed to the water room. Annie followed him, dragging the 4-stand, and called his name several times, but he ignored her. This blatant disregard ignited her anger, and she couldn't hold back anymore, raising her voice. Shawn, stop right there. Her shout woke the nurse on duty at the front desk, and Shawn was startled as well. Not wanting to upset her and wake the other patients, he finally stopped. What do you want? His cold expression contrasted sharply with the tender care he showed just an hour earlier, making Annie's already turbulent emotions even more sour. She couldn't hold it anymore and spilled her guts. Is it real with you and Gina? Shawn didn't expect such a question and was left speechless for a moment. We're married. How could it be fake? His words crushed Annie's hopes, but she wasn't ready to give up, looking at him intently, trying to catch any changes in expression. Do you love her? That question seemed to hit Shawn's heart. He tilted his head, thought for a while, nodded slowly first, and then spoke with conviction. Yeah, I like her. She's my wife. Of course I like her. Annie went pale instantly, shocked. You've only been married for a month. So what? We live together every day, sleep together. Feelings can grow easily. Annie felt like a stone was suffocating her heart. She opened her mouth but couldn't say a word, eyes filled with jealousy and anger. Since she wasn't speaking, Shawn didn't want to waste time, so he turned to fill up the water and head back. Just as they were about to pass by each other, Annie grabbed his hand, firm determination in her voice. Get a divorce with her. Stopping him made Shawn look at her like she'd lost her mind. Divorce? No way, she's the one for me in this life. His words were like needles, popping all of Annie's fantasies at once. For the first time, she realized Shawn was irreplaceable for her. Only after she lost everything did she realize her mistakes. But it was too late. thinking about how he'd never come back to her. Annie felt like her world was falling apart. She didn't care about her pride anymore. Her eyes were full of desperation. Shawn, leave her and come back to me, please? Shawn had never seen Annie like this. Even when Billy went abroad and she drank herself to sleep every night, she'd never looked this desperate and hopeless. After what happened yesterday, he lost the last bit of respect and fear he had for her. He used to like her, but he never forgot his place, never dared to cross the line. He did so much for her. Even if he couldn't get her love, he hoped she'd at least respect him. Reality hit him hard. She never cared about him, treated his true feelings like dirt, and ordered him around like a servant. If it was just about him, he could bear it because the Whites had been good to him. But causing a scene at his mom's grave was crossing a line. Even if she was just a nanny, Annie was raised by Shawn's mom. Shouldn't she show a basic level of respect, even if there's no real bond? The truth was, she looked down on his family from the start, lacking any basic decency for the deceased. Leaving the cemetery, Shawn felt a pang of guilt toward his mother. Before she passed, his mom had repeatedly warned him to let go of his feelings for Annie. He not only failed to do so but caused his mom's spirit unrest because of his actions. It was at that moment Shawn decided to let go of the burdens he'd carried for 10 long years. He stopped seeing Annie as a boss, as someone untouchable. He saw her as just a regular person who's powerful yet arrogant. So, when faced with Annie's breakdown, Shawn felt no fear. He raised his hand and peeled her fingers off one by one, speaking in a flat tone. It's been over between us, Annie. You should tell that to Billy. Each word stabbed through Annie's heart like a blade. She shook her head, her voice rasping painfully. No, I love you. Give me another chance, please. Let's get married. I'll marry you. Those were words Shawn used to dream of hearing. But now they meant nothing to him. Considering everything he'd been through, the scars, the crushed pride, he didn't think that was love. He knew what she really looked like when she loved someone, and he wouldn't fall for such lies again. So he turned around and quietly spoke his final words. Your kind of love is really disgusting. Watching his determined figure leave, Annie felt something in her heart slipping away, never to come back. She desperately wanted to hold on to it, hurried after him, but stumbled over a metal rack. A sharp needle pierced her weak skin as it fell out, blood spreading on the floor. She didn't notice, her eyes filled with pain staring upwards, hoping Shawn would look back. But he never did. Hearing the ruckus, a nurse rushed over and blocked her view. Defeated, Annie lowered her head, with no strength left to stand. Voices filled her ears, but she could no longer understand what they were saying. Tears fell one by one into the spreading bloodstains. Returning to the ward, Shawn found Gina awake, trying to get out of bed. Seeing her move, he strode over, put the water jug down, and pressed her back into the bed. Didn't you promise to rest? Why are you getting up again? Gina's complexion looked better, but her voice was still a bit hoarse. You were gone so long. I missed you a little. Shawn checked his watch, realizing he'd only been gone for less than 10 minutes. Watching her eyes flash with emotion, he couldn't help but rub his forehead. You accuse me of lying, but I think you're the biggest liar. You don't miss me. You're just watching me, right? Gina covered her mouth and coughed a bit, feigning a pitiful expression. I was worried you'd get in trouble. With all the noise outside, wouldn't I be failing my duty as your wife if I didn't check? Knowing she genuinely cared for him, Shawn gently grasped her hand and told her everything that had happened. I went out to get water and ran into Annie. She wanted me to divorce you. I refused. She freaked out and fell over, and to provoke her, I called her disgusting. Hearing the end of the story, Gina managed a faint smile despite her pale face. Good call. She really is disgusting. Shawn placed the back of his hand on Gina's forehead. Seeing her smile, he couldn't resist teasing her. So, even gentle and composed Gina curses someone, huh? Seeing him snicker, Gina's heart stirred. She leaned her head into his chest. I'm just human. I have emotions. I curse and do bad things, too. Bad things? What bad things? He looked genuinely confused, and Gina couldn't hold back her laughter. She lifted her head, landing a kiss on his lips. Shawn's face turned bright red, squeezing her waist with a shy voice. "You're sick and you're kissing me? If I catch it, I'm holding you accountable." The surface kiss wasn't enough. Hearing his teasing, Gina got bolder, moving even closer. Their distance narrowed further. Her soft voice with warm breath brushed Shawn's ear. "If you catch it, let's make the most of it with another kiss." Looking into her tender eyes, Shawn swallowed the words of refusal. Glancing around to ensure no one was outside, he lowered his head. "Okay, but then you can't say I tricked." Before he finished, her soft lips silenced him, swallowing all his words. In the merging of lips and teeth, the room was filled with an air of intimacy. Shawn hugged her back, and Gina melted against his hot chest like spring water. All she could hear was the pounding of her heart. She couldn't see or hear anything else. The kiss was so long that Shawn started feeling lightheaded and found it hard to breathe. His mind went blank and he almost forgot who he was or where he was. The only thing he was sure of was how much he liked the kiss, and how much he liked the person he was kissing. After getting back to J City, Annie shut herself in the old house, refusing to go out or see anyone. Every day, she would have boxes of alcohol delivered to the room Shawn had stayed in and drank until she was wasted. She would drink until her stomach started cramping painfully. She'd take some medicine with the alcohol and then drink more. She did this to herself for 2 weeks until her body couldn't take it anymore. She coughed up blood and ended up in the hospital. When the Whites got there, the doctor handed them her diagnosis. Seeing the words malignant gastric perforation, Annie's father looked extremely worried, and her mother fainted on the spot. But when Annie woke up and learned about her condition, she showed no reaction, just lying in bed blankly, looking lifeless. The treatment process wasn't smooth either. No matter who tried to talk her into it, she wouldn't listen. She refused to take medication and sneaked out of the hospital to avoid treatment multiple times. With things like this, her condition worsened quickly. The Whites only had one child, and were so desperate for help that they prayed everywhere, but nothing worked. It wasn't until Annie's mom overheard the secretary saying Annie's self-destructive behavior might have something to do with Shawn that she rushed to the Millers, hoping to talk to him. But no matter how much she tried, Gina wouldn't agree to a meeting. Frustrated, she started yelling outside, got caught on camera by some reporters, and ended up on the headlines that night. Along with it, a bunch of issues within W Group got leaked. The biggest ones were about Annie being too emotional and irresponsible. Suddenly, the Whites' reputation tanked. Reporters camped outside their house and the hospital daily, trying to dig up more news. To save what was left of their reputation and to give Annie a better treatment environment, the Whites quickly sent her abroad for treatment. No matter the chaos outside, Shawn didn't care at all. After getting back to J City, there were some issues with a project in C City that Gina had to handle, so their honeymoon got postponed. During this extra time, he moved to a villa on Crane Mountain and personally oversaw its renovation. When Gina came back from her trip, aiming to surprise her, he picked her up directly from the airport and drove straight to their new home. As the sun set, golden light splashed over the tulip-filled garden. The summer evening breeze moved the curtains, and the wind chimes gently sang from the eaves. Seeing the garden's new look, Gina smiled so widely her eyes formed little crescents, her face full of warmth. Shawn led her into the villa, showing her the living room and kitchen on the first floor, and the bedroom and study on the second. Room by room, he explained all the little touches he'd added. Gina followed him, listening to his stories about the house, slowly getting to know their new home. Finally, they held hands and stepped onto the rooftop terrace, watching the rosy dusk on the horizon together. Shawn pulled her closer, his words softly drifting in the breeze. After my mom passed away, home felt really distant. Before I met you, I thought I'd spend my life alone. But after the wedding, when you fell asleep next to me, even though we weren't close, I slept so peacefully. That night, I felt at home again. Listening to his quiet confession, Gina's smile grew wider. Do you know when I realized you were my home? Shawn tilted his head, curious. When? Gina clasped his hand, gently brushing her finger over the ring. her eyes sparkling like stars. The moment I heard your voice, the first time I saw you,